What's up, everybody? A day 3 of the draft special here. Connor here alongside Meegs. A couple draft guide guys just going through the abyss here, Meegs, of the draft. A weird day for the Jets. A lot of movement. They were slated to have 3 picks across round 4. They opt to kind of get out of 2 of them, take a lot of volume in round 5, jump back up, dump some of their round 6 picks. Joe Douglas has been all over the place on this draft. They do walk away with some players that we really liked, despite the strategy of, kind of jumping up and down. I think some players got away from them as well. It felt like I'll get into your thoughts on all those situations, but let's just start, I think, quickly by jumping into the Braelon Allen pick, and we'll recap the draft as a whole on the feed as well. But Braelon Allen was their first pick of the day, round 4, pick 134, a guy that it felt like when he was a 17-year-old in college football, some people looked at him and said, like, man, this kid could be a top 50 pick one day. Special power. Wisconsin moves to more of a zone scheme in 2023. Did not look like the same guy that we saw in 2022. What did you think of this selection to a backfield that had a clear-cut open spot?
I mean, I think like who was going to be the back they took as the veteran market side like started to dry up was going to be interesting. Like, did they view Brees as the power back? Because Brees is, but even though he's fast, he can still like work in short yardage. Or do they want like a bruiser? And they opted going for the big bruiser. Like when Braelon Allen burst on the scene, everyone's like, "What? Wisconsin has another one. Like this is
Yep.
Taylor again. Like it's like that. Who's like that kind of player?" And he didn't have the best year. Like that offense is just kind of weird because they went to like what they call it the dairy raid because they like Phil Longo became their OC, so now they were running the like Wisconsin was running the air raid of like
So weird.
the biggest stylistic like switch up you could probably see in college football. But he's such a young player. I think like we're so like bothered by the McCagnon years of taking 25-year-olds that drafting someone who doesn't turn 21 till the end of the season just feels like weird, especially on day 3. So he's a good player. Like this wasn't a great running back class, and I think they kind of pushed the value of them down, and they got a really nice value pick for 134 and someone who actually will probably should see the field. But given what they did with Izzy, I can't make a full bet on that.
Right. That's a good point because I had Izzy in my top 100 last year. They didn't play him. I had Braelon Allen in my top 100 this year. And I think it does fit the identity change the Jets keep showing their hand with all their offensive line signings, the style of offensive line they want to be. Ironically, I thought Olu actually looked better as a man blocker in college than a zone blocker. And now Braelon Allen, who is every bit of definition of a downhill power runner. I'll say this for Braelon Allen. As great as Brees is, and a lot of this was not Brees's fault, but you do need more. He gives you a real goal line
Mm-hmm.
threat when Brees needs a breather. How many years were the Jets? Michael Carter was
Yeah.
their goal line back. We always kind of laughed at it, like this is the opposite of what a goal line back looks like. Last year, it felt like they didn't really have guys that could punch the ball in as well. So at a minimum, he brings that. Before we get to there was kind of this trifecta, right? They took 3 players in the span of 5 picks. Before we break down Jordan Travis, Isaiah Davis, another running back, and Quantz Stiggers, the DB out of the CFL. Very unique situation there. What did you think of the 4th round navigation? Because I like them getting the future 3rd from Detroit. Like you can't deny the value of that. It is keeping in mind next year, like the future, and not really limiting too much of your win now because you had 3 4s. If you trade one for a future 3, that's really good business. I did not like trading pick 111, I believe it was,
Mm-hmm.
the Green Bay for a 5th and a 6th.
They only got one.
And it ended up in
I think it was just
right,
it
yeah,
was just one.
they lost on the
Yeah.
value. Yeah, the value didn't line up. But also in this draft, I thought it really didn't line up. Like I liked the 4th round of this draft. I admittedly hated the 6th and 7th round. I thought they were really all UDFAs for the most part. Like there was no
Yeah.
difference. And then it kind of trickled in when they got to round 5 because the Jets picked at the end of round 5. I was like, damn, this board really, really wiped out. I actually think they did pretty good all in all, but we'll save that. I just wish they made the pick at 111 because I thought TJ Tampa's a future starter at corner. I could have argued a lot of the wide receivers. The interesting thing was they traded that pick after Javon Baker went to the Patriots right in front of them. So I wonder if Baker was in play for them. All in all, it was one trade I liked and one trade I hated.
So I didn't like the trade they made with the Packers, but I think where they like jumped the shark was they made the Lions trade and then they made the San Francisco trade, trading out of the 4th round for those 2 5s. I just think it would have made much more sense if you move back, then you auction that pick off to Detroit, and then you make 2 4th round picks instead of just 3. You're like, hey, we want to sell off, we'll get a pick for the future for 2025. Lions have a first place schedule. If there's like a little bit of regression, that division's gonna be better with Caleb in it. We'll see what the Vikings are with JJ. Like Green Bay is gonna be better. I think they had like 4 or 5 top 100 picks in this draft for a team that was already a wild card team, so they're definitely trending up with Love. So it was a nice bet in the 3rd round. It just seems like they made one trade too many for my liking.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see them kind of follow the Howie model. And you see, this is where you see like the inexperience or maybe just not being Howie, right?
Yeah.
Like from the Eagles. Like one was great. Like when we do the draft next year, we're like, damn, this Lions 3rd rounder is really nice to have in your pocket. I did see Zach Rosenblatt from the Athletics say, keep in mind that as an asset for the trade deadline. Really interesting point, because 3rd rounders are usually like the big return at the trade deadline in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So that was a really, really good point. Now, if the Jets trade a 3rd at the deadline, they still have a 3rd. I didn't factor the Reddick 3rd into it because that's 2026. I don't even know if I'll be alive in 2026. I do not care about that.
No one knows. No one can.
And then, yeah, they lost on the one that they traded to Green Bay because that was an earlier pick. I thought there were starters on the board. I think every Jets fan agrees. Like Joe Douglas he just didn't play that situation right. So then they actually get to take some players. And this was a little bit of a roller coaster. We knew they were taking a quarterback. And I think we almost were positive it was either Jordan Travis or Michael Pratt, because those are the 2 guys they did the most work on. And I read this a little wrong, admittedly, and I want to know your thoughts on Travis. I read it as, we love Pratt. He'll probably go in the 3rd or 4th round, so we need a backup option. And I thought that was Travis, who probably would have been looked at as a 4th round guy if he didn't have a brutal season-ending injury, but that cost his process a lot. And in the end, they had both of them staring them in the face at pick 171, and they went with Travis, a guy with a little bit more mobility, which is why I like him being with Tyrod Taylor next year over Pratt. So I liked Pratt a little bit better as a prospect, but to get yourself totally tied up on the difference of the 2 would just be kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, like whatever happens with Rodgers, like after it, like it's not like if you're in position to take another quarterback or next year
this isn't
stopping you. So like Jordan Travis was a fun college player. It's someone who like went through like Florida State, kind of got much better as he was their quarterback year over year. He was someone who really like took the process, like has a lot of experience and played on a really good team. Unfortunately, because of his injury, we didn't get to see how great that team was in the college football playoff, which was a bummer because I think they had like 5 or 6 of their defensive players go in the top 100 this year, so that was a really like special team, and they all love him. Like he seems like a really cool guy. He seems like a really good leader. Which the Jets quarterbacks haven't played a lot of football like in the past couple of drafts. Like Zach had like the COVID year, and the BYU he had deal with some injuries. Darnold only had like 20 or 24 starts at USC. Like Travis has played a ton of football, and I think just getting that veteran presence, someone who can just give you a little bit of a floor, and hopefully if he has to spot start one day, because Tyrod does get hurt, but he only gets hurt against the Jets, so I don't know what he means when he plays for the Jets. So that's the thing I don't understand with his durability, is we're his kryptonite, but now he's with us.
So when you look at after that, and with Travis, yeah, to me, like, see what you have here. You went with a guy that has mobility. We'll see where he's at health-wise as well. It's just like you want to stash a guy, and this is a stash guy, and I hope he can play in the preseason, because I think it'd be a really fun preseason to watch just to see what he has. I know he was really, really well liked at Florida State. I mean, to put it in perspective, if he doesn't get hurt, Florida State gets voted into the college football playoff. So like that he mattered so much to that program that had just dripping with NFL talent this year. It was insane the amount of NFL players Florida State had this year. All right, so then they pull off the head scratcher at 173. Like 171, Jordan Travis, 176, Quantz Stiggers. You're like, oh yeah, they had visits with these guys. We knew about these guys. We wrote up these guys. Like they had high probability in terms of the range of probability of being Jets. Davis, who you wrote up for the guide, was a shock to me because one, they took a power back in Braelon Allen the round before. Two, they did draft Izzy Abanikanda. And even the thing is, I'm putting aside, like, even if they're out on Abanikanda, which no one knows, I thought they had the trifecta at running back where you have Brees, alien, Abanikanda, change of pace speedster, then Braelon Allen, the bulldozer. Yeah. Like you have really 3 totally different type of players. Then you take Davis, and I've had people be like, it's just a special teams pick. from what I am able to pull up, and you evaluated Davis, I watched him for the draft as well. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. Over the last 4 years at South Dakota State, he's played 34 total snaps of special teams. So I'm not saying he can't do it. He's not like an ace in college at special teams. So I don't know if this pick is one, they're just out on Izzy. And even if you are, did you have to do this here?
Yeah.
Okay. Two, is he a more watered down version of Braelon Allen? I kind of thought he was. And then three, like, is there some kind of plan we're not seeing here where he's going to be almost a fullback? But that feels weird because he's not even as big as Braelon Allen. Tell me what you thought of the player, and tell me what you thought of when they actually made this pick.
Like, this was the pick that made the least amount of sense. Like, he's a fine player. Like, it's the thing that the special teams thing is super odd to me because, like, this would be like at the FCS level, South Dakota State is like the Alabama, like the Michigan. This would basically be like if Michigan playing Blake Corum on special teams. Like,
they play NFL football.
Yeah,
there.
like they would never do it. It's because he's such an important player to your offense. You wouldn't risk getting hurt, like, you know, like covering a kick. So that's the part that, like, could be a projection. Like, Boyer is probably the coordinator on the team who's earned the most. Like, just give him what if he was.
He gets a pick every year. Yeah,
if he was pounding the table for him, like, I kind of get it, given like what the special teams units that he's built, and also now having to have basically change your entire kickoff, return, and defense formula now with these new rules. Maybe they're just going to get wonky in that way. I think you were talking about how Corley helps them on the inverse side of that. So it's just an odd pick. He's just, like I said, he's just like Allen. He's just a little worse and a little less proven because, like, he tries to run people over. And when you play at the FCS level, like, that's a little easier to do than the NFL. Like, Brees is basically the only back who can probably turn like a 15-yard gain into a 51 still, which I don't know if they're out on Izzy, but it's also, given how they've coached the guy, I don't know if they were ever in on Izzy after they took him.
That's a really good point. It was such a strange. I love their, like, what they would leak or say is that, like, oh, we can't put him on the field because he's not ready in pass pro. That's what Izzy's problem was in college. He was a 20-year-old prospect who, like, you don't care. If you're drafting him, you're saying, we don't care that you can't pass protect. You're a big play threat. And then the funny thing is, I didn't think he has the size and the will. I don't think Braelon Allen's very good in pass pro. Like, he doesn't, like, he doesn't see it really that well. He's a little late on things. So that just felt like a cop-out to me to not play Izzy last year. And they drafted another guy on day 3 this year in Allen that's not, you know, NFL ready in pass pro despite having the size. So camp will be weird. These things tend to work themselves out where, like, you're not rooting for this, but it feels like one of Allen, Davis, or Izzy will deal with something in camp that everybody just ends up on the roster, but they'll find a way to stash someone on IR or whatever it may be. Or Davis, honestly, Davis or Izzy just get cut. Right? Like, one of the two get cut. But
conditional 7th, 6th round trade that you'll sometimes see because someone's running back went down and they prospect, like, that happens every training camp.
Yes. I mean, but in this situation, like, Kamani Vidal, I think Tyrone Tracy, there was a couple really, like, explosive outside runners available if they wanted another running back. They took another downhill power runner. So, like, the Jets are literally telling everybody what they are going to be this year. All right, probably the most relevant pick to the 2024 Jets out of the 3 between Travis Davis and then is Quantz Stiggers. Because, one, nobody really talks about this with the Jets. As good as their secondary is, because the 3 starters at corner are awesome, and they're just fine at safety, right? Like, you look at it, you're like, okay, Chuck Clark, Tony Adams, like, we wish this was better, but, like, it's not a perfect roster. No roster in the NFL is. I like Eccles as a backup corner, but it felt like they really had room to add a body into this defensive back room. Stiggers, weird road to get here. Like, a guy that he went to a really small college, but he came home because his dad got into a car accident. His dad was, I think, in a coma, and his dad unfortunately ends up passing away. He doesn't return to go play college football. He's obviously in a funk. His father passes away. He ends up eventually down the road playing fan-controlled football that I think his mom showed him this league exists. He's one of the best players in that league. He has 5 picks. He, because of that league, gets a like shot in the dark tryout with the CFL, Toronto Argonauts. He makes the team. The Argonauts are like a good team.
They won the
so for him to make the team, it was like, how the hell did this fan-controlled football guy make the team? He ends up being the most outstanding rookie in the CFL. like an unbelievable Cinderella story for a guy that did not play any college football. But because of that, he doesn't get to sign from the CFL to the NFL, which would, like, when you do that, it's like decent money. It's everybody's dream in the CFL that didn't play in the NFL yet. And he has to go through this process. He's a Shrine guy. He tested well. He tested like an NFL athlete. So that was going to put him on the draftable radar. The ball skills translated to the CFL. This, to me, Meeks, was the guy that the Jets are going to look at and go, well, even if he's not a corner for us, which we're going to give him that shot, he's a really willing tackler with ball skills and zone coverage ability. Maybe he's our new safety hybrid, which they're obsessed with every year. This, to me, as weird as it is, was the most predictable Jets pick I could have came up with.
Yeah, you called this like from the jump,
like psychotically.
But it's like they kind of need, like, DJ Reed's gonna go, and if they're gonna start playing,
he's gonna leave.
They're gonna start playing the comp pick game. Like, I think the big thing about that Lions trade up is like they came up one player short getting the Bryce Hubb comp pick, getting that fourth. So I think another reason why people are gonna like that Lions one is you basically got that pick even at a higher position. If DJ Reed's gonna go and you're gonna want to start developing these guys, you got to take these kind of swings on day 3 where there's at least an optimal outcome that. If you pay Michael Carter the second, and then you slot in either Eccles or Swiggers here, like, and DJ Reed walks, and then you can start going with that cycle. So he's a guy I think worth taking the chance on. Like, he only turned 22 in January, so it's not like this is like a guy who's like this journeyman, like 25-year-old who's playing in Canada.
Right.
Like, he's still this is basically just like a regular senior in college. He's still like that. He has pro experience. He knows what it's like to be a professional athlete, which 99% of these draft picks don't get that opportunity. Like, he has an interesting road, and that experience probably can help him play sooner rather than later if he's called upon.
Yeah, the level of competition he was playing against in the CFL is really good. I mean, like, some of the players that come, like Isaiah Davis came out of the FCS. Like, the FCS level compared to the CFL is a couple jumps. Yeah. So level of competition checks the box, testing check the box, production. Really interesting to see Ulbrich and Saleh kind of go to work and develop him. And it's a pick I feel much better about. Last year they tried like Bernard Converse, and even when they took the kid from Pitt that went to the Giants. Pinnock. Oh my God.
Jason Pinnock.
Yes, Jason Pinnock. Like, I was low on him when they took him because I thought he was a corner. The safety transition worked, and they cut him.
Yeah, they tried to play the practice squad, which unfortunately didn't work.
So weird. Yeah, so weird. So this is something this regime does, and I think if you're Joe Douglas, like, you just let them do this on day 3 every year because you just don't care anymore. Yeah. All right, so Mr. Irrelevant pick is left. They have told everybody, we'll trade any pick in the draft except the last pick of the draft. We'll trade 10. They did. They'll take calls on any pick. They will not trade the Mr. Irrelevant pick. Woody Johnson wants the spectacle that is literally on TV, the Mr. Irrelevant pick. My prediction for this was Giovanni Manu. He went in the 4th round when the Lions traded up with the Jets, so way wrong on that. At least give me a position, Meegs, for Mr. Irrelevant.
I mean, it's more of a spectacle pick. I don't know if he's gone yet because I haven't, like, basically since the last Jets pick, I haven't checked. If Johnny Wilson's on the board, they're just going to take, like, the unicorn, I think.
He just went to the Eagles.
Of course, Howie took him. Because, like,
yep, in round 6 though, pretty big fall for him.
Yeah, like, that's it's either that or they're gonna take, like, the next version of Zach Kuntz, like, because there's like,
the RAS god.
Yeah, so it's gonna be an RAS god, probably either at probably one of the skill positions. Hopefully not another running back, because they already took their quarterback. Otherwise, Woody being like, if you just use a quarterback on Mr. Irrelevant, he could be Brock Purdy. Like, he would love that narrative.
I could see them going with wide receiver because it's the deepest group in the draft. Mm-hmm. Whether it's like, you're looking at Ryan Flournoy, like Jalen Coker, that level of player, it wouldn't shock me. Or they just take some big body on the offensive line. And, the weird thing is, like, a lot of people are saying take 5 offensive linemen. Like, the Jets really don't have a lot of room in their offense. Like, you saw that today because the interior class was one of the last good things left when that trifecta came for the Jets in the 5th round. They were close to Trevor Keegan. There's a lot of good centers on the board. When you look at their, like, the Tyron Smith, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera Tucker, Morgan Moses, that's the 5. But Olu, Schweitzer, Carter Warren, you think are like locks for this roster. You still have Max Mitchell here. I mean, you're not carrying 12 offensive linemen.
They only carry 10, if memory serves. Like,
right. So there just really wasn't a lot of room. It felt like they had almost 9 locks already. So I think that's why they kind of went with that direction. So I could see that. I could see the off-ball linebackers, for whatever reason, have been flying. I thought it was a really bad class. That group's been flying. I think they had a visit with Nathaniel Watson, I want to say, from Mississippi State. Since we stepped on, I haven't tracked if he's gone. He should not be, even though we're in the 6th
I don't know.
round.
I'm just
So
very excited to if the Eagles put Jeremiah Trotter and Devin White on the field at the same time. Just would be the funniest thing imaginable. Just watching them fit the run.
but it's how they play their linebackers,
Yeah.
so it would not be shocking at all. They'll have to have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have to save their bacon like on every single play, which fortunately those two can. All right, that wraps it up for our day 3 recap. I don't think we're going to jump back on immediately for Mr. Irrelevant, because that's as psychotic as we are that do the draft guide here. Like that, I promise you a tweet will suffice for that. A lot of recap content, though, will be rolling in over the next week, really the next 2 weeks. Film rooms. Are you going to do a draft season post-draft?
Probably, just so Dalton gets his takes out. I mean, he had
the
penultimate, like the last one, so I feel like he's got some. I don't think he loved Olafushanto. I don't know if he loved that the Jets took him instead of taking a weapon. So if he wants to vent, I got to give him a platform.
I think Dalvin was it. He was right on the whole time, and nobody else was saying this, that they wanted Neighbors. The Jets just never had a path to get Malik Neighbors. Like you had to get in front of the Giants and the Chargers. It just the path didn't exist. I'm curious to listen to that.
Yeah, you
one.
need the Giants to actually get the Drake May trade up, and then
that was
the
it.
Patriots would just take JJ at 6. That would have been your path. But even then, there's still a lot of moving things, and Malik Neighbors is such a special prospect that you're probably the only one who would be willing to go up for him.
That's exactly right. All right, we'll have a lot coming on the feed over the next 2 weeks. Stick with us, and we'll talk to you guys soon.